Welcome. This is a public service report, and we're digging into something that's quietly changing the face of American suburbs, literally one bulldozer at a time. It's called the teardown. We're seeing perfectly good, sometimes even beloved family homes getting demolished just to make way for something bigger and way more expensive. So we're going to investigate why this is happening, what it really means for our communities, and what the future of the suburban landscape even looks like. So, what is going on here, right? Why are all these charming brick ranches and solid mid-century homes being turned into piles of rubble? It's a question you hear in neighborhoods all over the country, from the leafy streets of Chicago to the sun-baked lots in Dallas. Our investigation kicks off right here. Okay, first things first, let's be super clear about what we mean when we say tear down. This is not about getting rid of abandoned or dangerous properties. Nope. This is a cold, hard economic decision, and it's all driven by one simple fact. The dirt a house sits on has become fundamentally more valuable than the actual house itself. And that economic math is happening so often now that what used to be kind of a niche real estate move has just exploded into a full-blown industry. We're talking an industrial-scale trend that is completely transforming the character of entire communities. So how on earth did we get here? Here it is. This is the single most important finding from our investigation. The teardown trend isn't about bad houses. It's about fantastic land. In so many of America's most desirable neighborhoods, the house has basically become an obstacle on the path to profit. It's just a placeholder waiting to be wiped away for something bigger and shinier. So what is the math that makes a developer look at a perfectly fine family home and see only the land underneath? Well, it all comes down to a simple but pretty ruthless formula we're calling the land value equation. This slide just illustrates the shift in thinking perfectly. Look on the left. Traditionally, a property's value is the land plus the house. Makes sense. But on the right, in a teardown world, that whole equation gets flipped on its head. The property's value is now the land minus what it costs to demolish the house. The house is no longer an asset. It's a liability you have to pay to get rid of. So where's the tipping point? When does a house officially become a liability? Our research points to this number. When the value of the land is more than 70% of the property's total value, that house becomes a prime target for demolition. Just picture a modest 1960s bungalow in a great school district. If that lot is worth $1 million, the house itself is practically irrelevant to a builder. Of course, it's not always so straightforward. As this 2025 decision matrix shows, a whole bunch of factors come into play. Let's walk through it. See, high land value and zoning that lets you build bigger? That strongly favors a teardown. That's the builder's sweet spot. But then look at the other side. Today's higher interest rates and, just wanting to hang on to your capital, that could push regular homeowners toward renovating what they already have. It's this constant tug of war between builder economics and what makes sense for a family. And that economic equation we just saw, that builder sweet spot, well, it creates a massive opportunity for a very specific kind of player in the real estate market, the speculative builder. These are the folks who are really driving the teardown trend, one demolition at a time. Here's our business model basically boiled down to a high-risk, high-reward sprint. They swoop in and buy a property, a lot of times with cash so they can beat out regular family buyers. Then they demolish the house and build a brand new one on spec. That's short for speculation, which means they don't even have a buyer lined up yet. And then they sell it for a profit, hoping for a margin of about 10 to 15%. The whole game is just about speed and efficiency. And in some markets, this high-speed cycle is getting supercharged by what people are calling the Amazon effect. When a huge corporation moves into town, it brings this massive influx of high-income workers who are all looking for modern, move-in-ready homes. This creates a sudden demand shock that makes all the existing, older houses in the area prime targets for demolition and replacement. But look, this teardown trend isn't just an economic story that you can see on a balance sheet. It's a physical one, and it's playing out on our streets. When you replace a whole bunch of different older homes with a row of brand new, often much, much larger ones, it has these profound ripple effects on the entire character of a community. You can actually see this evolution just by looking at the architecture of the new houses. Remember the McMansions of the 90s? They were all about sheer size and crazy roof lines. Then came the modern farmhouse phase in the 2010s, which was everywhere. White siding, black windows. And now we're seeing a shift toward a transitional style, which kind of blends modern design with more traditional stuff like stone and wood.
But there is a really dark side to all this new construction, a huge environmental contradiction. So while a brand new home is almost always more energy efficient to run than the one it replaced, the process of demolition and construction has a massive upfront environmental footprint. It's kind of like taking one step forward but two giant steps back.
Okay, this chart from the EPA tells a pretty shocking story. Just look at the bar on the right. Construction and demolition debris is the single largest source of waste in the entire United States. It absolutely dwarfs the amount of trash we all produce in our homes. In fact, it's more than double all of our regular garbage combined. And most of that debris, it comes from demolition. This leads us to this really critical idea of embodied carbon. That's all the energy and resources that go into making new building materials like concrete and steel. And when you factor that in, you get to a pretty simple but powerful conclusion that we're seeing in recent environmental studies. The greenest building is the one that is already standing. So where do we go from here? I mean, given the powerful economic forces pushing for teardowns and the huge environmental costs they create, what does the future actually hold for our suburbs? Let's take a look at some of the trends and maybe even solutions that are starting to emerge. The market right now is a real mixed bag. You've got the lock-in effect from all those low mortgage rates, which means a lot of homeowners just aren't selling. That limits the supply of potential teardowns. So it's creating this two-tiered or bifurcated market, where the super wealthy keep building new homes while a lot of other folks, locked in by their low rates, are choosing to renovate instead. Because of all this, the future probably isn't about stopping teardowns altogether, but more about managing them in a smarter, more sustainable way. Cities are starting to explore policies like mandatory deconstruction to salvage materials or even carbon fees. But there's also a growing movement to promote what's called missing middle housing. So think duplexes, triplexes, and other ways to add gentle density as an alternative to just the one giant mansion. And this brings us to our final and maybe most important question. As land in our most desirable neighborhoods becomes more and more scarce and valuable, the teardown trend is probably going to continue. So the real question for all of us is, what kind of communities do we actually want to build? What will we choose to preserve, and what will we build in its place? That is a conversation that all of us need to be a part of.